Good morning, how are you? Good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Today we are learning Perek of Pesachim. Today is Perek tomorrow is Perek Yud, and then we're off to Shkalim, Habalina Tova. Okay, very cool. Um, Today we're going to be talking about Pesach Sheni. Today's shir is the Ilay Nishmas, Aaron Nachum and Simcha Kohen, Shul Mordechai ben Shepsel, Bracha Sarah Shmuel Leib, Moshe ben Yosef, maybe then Hashem will have an aliyah. And first name of Adasar Bas Leah, Chana Pesel Bas Yenta, Yisra ben Rachel Leah, Rachel Bas Pesel Zelda, Avram Yitzchak ben Risha, Chai Bas Dobabela. First name of Besel Shar Chali Yisrael. Okay, let's get going. Today we're going to talk about Pesach Sheni, Perek Tes Mishnah Aleph. Here we go. Now we know there's a mitzvah. 1 second. There's a mitzvah. The chiyuv is to bring a korban Pesach on the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan. Then for a few yechidim, as we're going to learn now, there was a makeup date. The few yechidim who were not able to bring the Pesach Rishon for, we'll see what the extenuating circumstances are, and then the Torah gave them a makeup date of the 14th of Iyar. So the first Mishnah starts off Misha Tameh, one who was Tameh on the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, who was not eligible to bring his Pesach, or he was on a distant road on the 14th in the afternoon. He was too far away to reach the base in time to make his korban. Lo asa es harishon, and he therefore did not bring the first korban Pesach. Yases Sheni, he should bring the second Pesach on the 14th of Iyar, as the pasuk says in Bimidbar Perek Tes. Similarly, Shagat, a person who did not bring the first Korban Pesach because he made a mistake, he didn't realize this was the day, or other unintentional mistakes, nanas, or he was prevented from bringing the first Korban Pesach, Pesach Rishon, by circumstances that were beyond his control, besides for being tummy and distance. For example, let's say he was sick in bed, he was sick with the flu, or whatever, lo asa rishon, and therefore he did not bring the first Korban Pesach. Yases Sheni, that he should bring the second Korban Pesach on the 14th of Iyar. So the question is, if that's the case, that anyone who's unable to bring the first Korban Pesach on the 14th, the Korban Pesach on the 14th of Nisan brings the second one, regardless of the reason. Then why does the pasuk mention specifically someone who's tamei or one who's on a distant road as those who bring the Pesach Sheni? She'elu peturim min hakares. It does so to teach that these people, the tamei and the one who's on a distant road, are exempt from the onesh, the punishment of kares, even if they intentionally do not bring the Pesach Sheni. Whereas the other people who did not bring the first Pesach, the Pesach Rishon, either by mistake or because of circumstances under their control, beyond their control, they are chayav kares if they intentionally do not bring the Pesach Sheni. Very interesting. Mishnah Beis. So Ezahi derech. So what's considered a distant road? Min hamodiim ulachutz, anywhere from Modi'im and beyond, which is away from Yerushalayim. That's in current terminology, that's between 8.5 to almost 11 miles, which depending on different opinions of a mile. Now, in today's day and age, 11 miles away, you'll be there in 5 minutes.
But in the times of the Mishnah, when everybody went by camel, donkey, or by other animals, 11 miles was quite a journey, and therefore uh, you would have to be, then that was very far. Um, I would imagine that nowadays, whenever we resume being Kohen Pesach, hopefully this year, Mr. Hashem, you know, Derech HaChoka is going to be like if you missed your flight from New York, or you get like a 6 hour bus ride maybe, but to be discussed practically in the right time. Ukimidas the Charuach, and a similar measure around Jerusalem in all Jerusalem in all of directions. So Midaim is only one direction, but you go that same distance to 8.5 to 11 miles in all distances from Yerushalayim. That's the same thing. Rabbi Akiva, this is according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer says, "Mi iskufas ha'azar v'lechutz." This guy's causing a lot of noise. That's a little better. Okay, sorry about that. The iskufas ha'azar v'lechutz, even from the threshold of the Chatz of the Beis Hamikdash and beyond, is considered distant road if you cannot enter the Azara of the Beis Hamikdash in time. Meaning that even if one was very close to the Beis Hamikdash when the Karbanos were being slaughtered, were being shechted, but he could not enter to bring his car because of circumstances beyond his control, meaning that he became too sick, he is still regarded as being on a distant road. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, "Lefichach nakud al hey." Therefore, there is a dot in the Sefer Torah over the letter hey in Rechoka. I have to look that up, actually. I didn't actually look that up yet. Distant Lomar, to say that he is exempt from Karis. Lo mifnei Rechoka vadai, not because there is actually distant, elami iskufas hazov v'lechutz, but because it's too distant for him, even from the threshold of the chutzner and beyond. Sometimes you just didn't make it. You were close, but you didn't quite make it. Not close, but not enough. But not close enough. Mishnah Gimel. Ma ben Pesach Rishon Sheni. How does the first Pesach and its korban differ from the second, from Pesach Sheni and its korbanos? Harishon also b'bal yira b'yimatzah. During Pesach Rishon, the 14th of Nisan, a person is usher to own chametz, as the Torah says. The chametz shall not be seen, but it should not be found in your possession. Sheni matzah v'chametz ima b'bayis. But on Pesach Sheni, he may have both matzah and chametz with him at home. Even the person bringing the Pesach Sheni may own chametz. He can't eat it together with the Pesach Sheni, but he can own it. Harishon ta'on halabachilaso. The first the Pesach Rishon, requires seeing halal while eating it. Sheni eino ta'on halabachilaso. The second Pesach does not require seeing halal while eating the Korban Pesach. Zeh v'zeh ta'on halal pasiyasa. But this one, the Pesach Rishon, and the second one, the Pesach Sheni, require seeing halal while being mocked with them in the Beis Hamikdash. We discussed in the previous Perek that they were seeing halal like 2 or 3 times throughout the time of the korban. And they are both eaten roasted al matzah umarorim, together with matzah and maror. V'dochen is Shabbos, and the avoda, both of them override Shabbos. So with the 14th of Nisan falls, the 14th of Nisan or the 14th of Iyar falls out of Shabbos. The korban Pesach, are brought in its proper time, because that's the only time they can be brought, is either in the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan or the afternoon of the 14th of Iyar. That's it. Mishnah Daled.
So we discussed earlier in Perek Zion that if the rove of the tzibur was tummy on the 14th of Nisan, that the korban is still brought and eaten in a state of tumah. Now we're going to talk about which tummy people can eat it and which cannot. HaPesach sheba b'tumah is a Mishnah Dalet. If a korban Pesach is brought in a state of tumah, because most rove of the tzibur have become tummy through a tumas mace, lo yachlu mimenu zavim v'zavas nidos yodos, then other people, meaning the zavim and zavos and nidos and people and women who have given birth, who are all tummy from dam and from discharges, they cannot eat from the korban because their tumah is not from tumas mace. Therefore, they are not entitled to this leniency, and even when everyone else can. But if they did eat from it, they are nevertheless putter from kares. Right, which is the exception. They're not allowed to eat it, but they're not chayiv kares if they do. Rabbi Lezer poter af al bias mikdash. Rabbi Lezer even parties them from kares for entering the mikdash in state of tumah. However, the Tanakama holds that they are chayiv kares for entering the mikdash while tummy, even when the korban Pesach is brought in a state of tumah. So that's an interesting thing. You can be makar the korban Pesach, but you're still chayiv for tumas mikdash. Okay, Mishnah Hey. We talked about the differences between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Now we're going to talk about the Pesach Mitzrayim and the Pesach Doros, like the korban that was brought in at the year of Yitzie Mitzrayim, that day in 2448, and all the other Pesachs in the future. Ma bein Pesach Mitzrayim and Pesach Doros. What's the difference between how did the korban Pesach brought in Mitzrayim differ from all the succeeding korban Pesachs in future generations? Pesach Mitzrayim Mechu Asr. The animal used for the korban Pesach in Mitzrayim was taken and set aside for the korban on the 10th of Nisan, 4 days before the Shechita, whereas the animals used for regular Pesach can be chosen just moments before, like that day. V'taon hazab be'agudas ezav, and the korban Pesach of Mitzrayim required that the sprinkling of its blood be done with a bundle of hyssop, ala mashkaf al shtei mezuzos, upon the lintel, that's the crossbeam, and the two doorposts of every Jewish home, to distinguish them between the Egyptian home, which would be affected by Makas Becharos, and whereas all the other korban Pesachs of the future had no such requirement, because Makas Becharos was a one-time thing. And the korban Pesach of Mitzrayim was eaten quickly, because they had to get ready to leave Mitzrayim. And it was also a one-night thing. The holiday of Pesach was a one-night thing, and the Isser Chametz is only on for one day. With Pesach, Doros Noe Kol Shiva. Whereas with the Pesach holiday of all future generations is observed biblically for all 7 days. The Rabbanan you add on an 8th day Chutz, but al pi Torah it's only 7 days. Mishnah Vav. Amar Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says, Shemati shetemuras haPesach kreva. I heard from my teachers that the temura, that the substitute of a Pesach offering, under certain circumstances, is offered on the mizbeach as a shlamim. really we don't like doing tamura. It's not, doesn't really work. But so if you do it, uchumas pesach ain't a kreva. I also heard from them that the tamura of a Pesach offering, under other circumstances, is not itself offered as a shlamim, rather is left until it could be sold and the money is then used to buy a shlamim. Mainly the farish, but I cannot explain this teaching, for I have forgotten under which circumstances each ruling applies. That's according to Rishon. Rabbi Akiva said to Rishon, I need a farish, I'll explain it to you. That your teachers referred to the following case. An animal designated as a Kohen Pesach was lost before Erev Pesach, at which point the second animal was designated as a replacement. The original animal was later found. The law that depends upon then depends upon when it was found. If the original Pesach was found before the replacement Pesach was slaughtered, the original Pesach became a rejected offering, and therefore cannot be offered as a shlamim either. Rather, yireh ad sheyistaiv is left to graze until it develops a blemish. The yamakir and is then sold. The yikach b'dam of shlamim, and the shlamim is bought and offered with its money. The chen tamuraso, and the same is true with its tamura. A tamura of this rejected Pesach also cannot be offered as a shlamim. This is the case in which Yeshua heard that the tamura of a Pesach is not offered. If, however, the original Pesach offering was found after the replacement Pesach was shechted, karev shlamim, and the original one, which was never rejected, is itself offered as a shlamim. Yechein tamaraso, and the same is true with its tamura. This is the case in which Yeshua heard that the tamura of the Pesach is offered. Mishnah Zayin. Hamafrish nekeva lepischa o zachar ben shtei shanim. If someone designates a female animal for his Pesach offering, or a male animal in its second year, both of which are not acceptable for a Pesach offering, yira ad sheyistaiv, the law is that it must be left to graze until it develops a blemish, macher, and it is then sold. V'yiplu damav dava, and its money falls to the chest in the Beis Hamikdash marked for voluntary communal offerings. There were 6. We're going to learn in Shkalim in next week probably that there are 6 collection chests set up in the Beis Hamikdash marked as voluntary communal offerings. Money from these chests went to buy the communal ola offerings, the communal korban olas, to be brought on the mizbeach at times when there were a few korbanos to be brought. These olos were not a communal obligation; rather, they were extra voluntary korbanos. Hence, the label "voluntary" on the chest. Yeah. Okay. Hamafresh Pishcha v'Meis, if someone designated an animal for his Kohen Pesach and then it dies, Lo Yeviyenu Beno Acharov B'Shem Pesach, since no one else was registered on the Kohen Pesach besides for the dead man, then the Kohen Pesach is pasul, and his son who inherits him may not bring it for himself as a Kohen Pesach. Ela l'shem shlamim, rather is brought as a shlamim offering. Right, because if you were not registered to the Pesach, then it doesn't count. Mishnah Ches. HaPesach. Let me see. HaPesach shenis are bezvachim. If a Kohen Pesach became mixed up with other types of korbanos, which differ from the Kohen Pesach regarding their blood service and times of eating, Kulan Yiru Ad Sheyistaiv, all of them must be left to graze until they develop disqualified blemishes, V'yimachru, and they are then sold. This means that the kedusha is transferred by the owner to money that the owner has, and the money is then used to buy korbanos to replace the ones that were mixed up. However, the 3 animals are presumably not all worth the same amount of money. Yavi bedame Hayafa shebehen miminzeh. Therefore, the owner must bring this type of carbon for the value of the most expensive of the mixed up animals. V'damei hayafa shebehen miminzeh, and he must also bring the other type of carbon for the value of the most expensive of them. Since we do not know which type of carbon the most expensive animal was, each replacement offering must be worth the value of the most expensive of the mixed up animals. The Yafsid Hamosa Rebesa, and he loses the extra cost from his pocket. This Arab the Bechoros, if however the Korban Pesach became mixed up with the Bechor's offerings, with the Bechor with the carbon of a Bechor, whose 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 blood of Oda, what is dam, is the same as the Pesach. Rabbi Shimon says, if the group registered on the carbon is made up of only Kohanim who are permitted to eat a Bechor, Yochelu, then they need not sell the animals and then buy new ones, rather they may eat the carbon on Pesach night. The Kabbalah on Pesach night. They bring both animals as karbanos at Erev Pesach and then eat a piece of each one that night. This way, they are sure to have their piece of the Pesach offering and have not done anything wrong by eating from the Bechor as well. Mishnah test: Chabura she'ava Pesach. If a group lost its Pesach offering, the Amar le'echad, and they said to one of its members, "Say, uvakish ushachat alinu." Go out, search for the lost Pesach, and when you find it, slaughter it for us. He went, found it, and slaughtered it for himself and the whole group. And meanwhile, fearing that the lost animal would not be found in time, the rest of the group bought and slaughtered another animal for the Korban Pesach, so that there are now two slaughtered Korban Pesachs for one group. Then the halacha is im shalo nishchat Rishon. If his animal, in the original carbon was shechted first, who ochel mishalo, and he eats from his Korban Pesach, v'hem ochlin eat imam mishalo, and the rest of the group will also eat from his Korban Pesach with him. Since they appointed him as their agent to slaughter the original animal, they remain registered on that carbon. And once it is shechted, they can no longer withdraw from it and register on another one. Therefore, the entire group eats from the original Pesach. And if their animal was shechted first, then they eat from the Korban Pesach because the shechita of the second Pesach is considered a withdrawal from the first Pesach. And he eats of his Pesach because he never withdrew from it and never registered on theirs. If it is not known which of the two animals was shechted first, or both were slaughtered at the same time, then he eats from his Pesach, since whichever animal was shechted first, he remains registered on the original carbon, as he never registered on the second korban. But they may not eat with him from his korban because of the possibility that their animal was shechted first, in which case they would be considered to have withdrawn from his. And their Pesach is taken out to be burned. They are usher to eat from their Korban Pesach as well, because of the possibility that his Pesach was shechted first, in which case they were never registered on the second animal. The second Korban is therefore considered ownerless and possible. Sheni, however, although they may not eat from either Korban Pesach, they are potter for making a Pesach Sheni and ER, since in any case one of the Karbanos, whichever one was slaughtered, was shechted first, was in fact shechted for them. They have fulfilled the mitzvah of bringing a Korban Pesach and do not need to bring a second carbon. The next case, Amalahed. We're still in Mishnah Tes. This next case, Amalahed, If instead of the group instructing him to find and shecht the lost Pesach for them, one of them went on his own to search for the lost Pesach, and he said to the other members of the group, if I am late in returning to you, go out and shech the replacement carbon for me together with you. Shachat, and he went and found the lost carbon and he shechted it. Meanwhile, the rest of the group bought and slaughtered another animal for their carbon Pesach. And then the halacha is as follows. Then the halacha is Rishon, if the animal is shechted first, if their animal is shechted first, then they eat from their carbon, since they have withdrawn from the first Pesach. And he also eats with them, since he asked them to count him in on their carbon. He is considered to have withdrawn from the first one and registered on theirs when they shechted it. And if his animal is shechted first, then he eats from his carbon, and they eat from their carbon, since they have already withdrawn from the first carbon, because they never told him to find and offer it. If it is not known which of them was shechted first, or if both were shechted at the same time, then they eat from their carbon. For either way, they have withdrawn from the first carbon Pesach and registered on the second one. But he may not eat from their carbon because of the possibility that the first animal, his carbon, was shechted first, in which case he was unable to withdraw from it and register on the second animal. And his carbon is taken out to be burned, and he is usher to eat from it as well. Since he appointed the rest of the group as his agents to shech the second carbon for him, he has withdrawn from the first carbon, if in fact the second one is shechted first. Because this indeed may have happened, his carbon needs to be burnt. Sheni. However, although he may not eat from either carbon, he is parted from making a second Pesach offering, because whichever Pesach was in fact shechted first, he was registered on it, and he has fulfilled the mitzvah of bringing a Korban Pesach. Amalehen, the third case. Amalehen v'amalo. If he said to them, they said to him, that is, he told them that if he delays, they should shech the second carbon for him, and they told him that he should find the lost carbon and then shech it for them. Often kulam in a Rishon, then they all eat from the carbon Pesach that was shechted first, because he is the group's agent, and they are his agents to shech the Pesach for each other, so that all of them in effect are registered on the Pesach that was shechted first. But if it is not known which of them was shechted first, then both of them are taken out to be burned, since there is a doubt as to which one is their current Pesach, which one is ownerless and usher to eat. And then the last case of this Mishnah, if he did not say anything to them and they did not say anything to him, meaning that neither he nor the rest of the group asked the other to shecht a Pesach for them, and he went on his own and found and shechted the lost Pesach while they went on their own and bought as shechted another one. They are not responsible for each other. Neither party has any claim on the other, and each of them eats from its own Pesach, regardless of when it was slaughtered. Okay, Mishnah Yud, two more to go. Yud and Yud Aleph. If the current Pesach of two groups became mixed up with each other, so let's not know which animal belongs to which group, then the one group takes themselves one of the animals, and the other group takes for themselves one of the other animals. In which case, each group randomly chooses one of the mixed up animals. And one member of the first group comes over to the second group and joins them. And one member of the second group comes over, joins the first group, and joins them. V'chach came Omrim, and then the original members of each group say the following: it's a Tanai, Im Shalanahu Pesach Hazeh. If this Pesach is ours, the one that we originally designated, so that then our registration does not need to be changed, but yours does. Then you are withdrawn from your Pesach and are registered on ours. And if this Pesach is yours, then the one that your original group had designated and is that's still yours. Yadena Meshuchas Mishalanu Namninu Al Shalcha. Then we are withdrawn from our Pesach and registered on yours. After each group has made this declaration, they are all registered for certain on the Pesach in their possession. For even if they have switched the original carbons, they have now withdrawn from them and are registered on the Pesach that is now in front of them. Similarly, if they were 5 groups of 5 members each, or 10 groups of 10 members each, and their Pesach offering and the current Pesach became mixed up with one another, then each group takes themselves one of the animals and one person from every other group, and they say the same declaration. After all 5 or 10 new groups have been made this declaration, then they all register for certain on the carbon that they now have. And the last Mishnah for today, Shnaim Shinis Arva Pischehem, 2 people whose this is Mishnah Yud Aleph, 2 people whose carbon Pesach became mixed up should do as follows. Zeh Moshech Lo Echad, Zeh Moshech Lo Echad. This one takes for himself one animal, and that one takes for himself the other animal. Each person randomly chooses one of 2 animals. That's step 1. Step 2, Zeh Mimana Imo Echad Min Ashuk. This one that registers one person from the street to join with him on his carbon. Zeh Mimana Imo Echad Min Ashuk. And this one, and that one registers another person from the street to join with him on his carbon. There are now 2 groups of 2 people each. The original owners then instructed the new partner to stand next to the offering that he has chosen. And then the third step, Zeh Ba Eitzel Zeh. This original owner then comes over to that Pesach that the other owner chose, Zeh Ba Eitzel Zeh, and that original owner comes over to this Pesach. Each of the original owners is now standing by the carbon that the other original owner chose, together with the owner's one new partner. The Chachem Omrim, and then the original owners each say as follows to the new partner: Im Shalihu Pesach Zeh. If this Pesach that we are standing by is really mine, which means that I, and your partner have actually switched Pesachs, and this is not your carbon. Then you are withdrawn from your carbon and are now registered on this one that is mine. And if this carbon that we are standing by is yours, which means that I and your partner happen to pick our original carbon Pesachs, then I am withdrawn from my original carbon and am registered on this one that is yours. This way, each pair is registered for certain on the Pesach that they now have. That is the end of chapter test. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Perek Yud, the final Perek. Kol Tuv.